I enjoyed that way too much, guys. I enjoyed that way too much. How is everyone? Thank you so much for joining today. Really appreciate everyone jumping on to this crash course. The crash course, I've actually done quite a few, really a lot of value in these slides. So I'm going to try and condense it all into this hour. If I feel like there's too much and I'm going too fast, then what I'll do is we'll split into parts. So part one and then part two can happen next week. But let's see how we go today. So first of all, thank you everyone for joining today. As you're all here, we're all on lockdown, we're all sort of advancing our understanding of what the world looks like and how we can navigate it going forward. And of course, you know, if you have a look at where everyone is today, everyone is sitting in front of a computer. So not only is it an amazing time for engagement and free engagement, like organic engagement, it's also an amazing time to be able to spread a message and be able to put information out there, and because you know people are going to be consuming it. So that was really the birth of why this course came out. And of course, you know, I hope that you guys receive a lot of value from it. If you guys have any questions, so we have myself on the call and we have a couple of my colleagues from Recruited on the call. So you've got Kevin, Louisa, and also Neil on the call. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the box, and then if they can't answer them, I'll answer them sort of as we go along, hopefully. But because I can't see the screen, I won't be able to see the questions, so they may jump in. Or if you do have a specific question that's burning there and then, feel free to jump in. You're going to have people joining as we go along, but that's fine. The more the merrier. And as I said, I hope you guys get a lot of value from today's session. So let's go ahead and crack on. So just a quick introduction to myself. So my name's Antonio. I am the CEO of a company called Recruited, a small company in London. We are a technology business. We've been going for the past 3 years, and we basically build technology for recruiters. So one of our platforms is called Leo. That's named after my son, the little boy on the right-hand side here, you can see. And then Leo is an all-in-one recruitment CRM and a five-year-old boy. And then you've got Alaska, who's my daughter on the right-hand side. So Alaska is named after my daughter. It's a sourcing assistant for recruiters whilst they're around online. And then we have Brief Builder. I always say that I don't have a child called Brief Builder, but maybe my next child will be called Billy Brief Builder or something like that. You know, actually, I don't. Maybe we'll see. Any suggestions for names of Brief Builder? Please feel free to drop them in the comment box, because I think we need to make it a person. Brief Builder is a tool for hiring managers and recruiters to build job briefs together, as fundamentally as that. Okay, enough of that stuff. Let's get into why social media is good for sourcing. So we're all on social today. Now, the stats that I'm going to share with you guys now have actually transformed, you know, over the past couple of weeks, and that's because we are all online, right? So social media, we know it, everyone's been talking about it for years, and some of us are really good at being on social. Some of us aren't so good. Not that we're not good, we're just not active. And obviously, in the comments section, I'd like to know who is active, who feels they could be doing more on social media. You know, who's doing a lot, who's got any tips for other people to share as well. Please feel free to have conversations amongst yourselves as well, guys. You know, feel free to request any songs for the next workshop also. So why is social good for sourcing? So if you look at digital around the world, now, as I said, this would have advanced massively in the past 6 weeks, obviously because of that pesky COVID. But if you look at the total population of the world, it's around 7.7 billion, 55% urbanization. But if you have a look at how many mobile phone connections are in the world, there's 7.99 billion mobile phones connections. So it's 103% versus the population, right? Which is crazy. So if you think about, there's more phones connected to the world than there is, you know, people on the world. I'm wondering why there's more. Obviously, you guys make up your minds on that, but I think it's drug dealers. I mean, they're the ones who have the excess phones. I'm only joking. But yeah, there's a lot of mobile phones, but it also means that a lot of people are putting their attention in phones, right? Internet users across the globe is 4.5 billion and growing. So 59% of the globe, 59% of the world's population has access to internet. So that's a super interesting fact. And obviously, I think you guys can make up your mind around what that means for recruitment activity and marketing in general. And then if you have a look across the globe, there's actually 3.8 billion active social media users. So half the globe now is an active social media, is active on social media. You also take another thing that, 3 years ago, this was 2 billion. So in 3 years, it's doubled, active social media users, and it will only continue, because if you take a look at where we're at now with this TikTok generation, probably the majority of us were the Facebook generation, maybe going into Snapchat generation / Instagram generation. But the TikTok generation, these guys, the reason TikTok is so big right now, it used to be an app called Musical.ly, right? And I don't know if everyone remembers when it was called Musical.ly, and it's basically, it was called Musical.ly, and it was a place for, young kids to get on and just basically create music videos, lip sync to stuff. And so that was the place that they were using, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And those 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds now have grown up and they're now 15, 16, whatever. So that's the main social network platform that they've used. So we've now, as a generation, particularly in lockdown, TikTok blown up purely because that's where the younger generation are, and people go where the younger generation sits. So because all the parents want to see what their kids are up to, all the grandparents want to see what their grandchildren are up to. So these are some very interesting facts. So the next wave of whatever it may be, we've got TikTok now. There'll be something else coming up in the coming years, and it's really interesting to look at that psychology. Okay, so I've spoken a bit about the growth, but if you take a look here, since last year, it's 310% growth on social channels, okay? 7% growth on internet users, 2.4% on unique mobile users, and then total population's grown by 1% as well, so we're doing a good job there. Okay, so across the globe, we have a number of stats here, which is percentage of global internet penetration. So Northern America, 88%, Western Europe, 92%. I will send these slides out afterwards so you can start really focusing on what regions you're attacking as a recruitment function, as an employer, and then have a really good understanding of where you should be focusing your attention as well. The mobile share, so internet time, right? So 50% of our internet time is on mobile. Now, the reason I'm telling you guys these statistics, have a look at how this has grown over the past number of years, is that people are more often now they don't have PCs, or they will have PCs, but they won't be using the PC as their main source of internet time. Your internet time will be on your mobile device. Here are some interesting stats about the world's most visited sites. Now, there are a couple of porn sites in there, guys, but these are the stats. I didn't make them up, okay? You've got Google, so obviously the top 10 minutes average time per visit, and going downwards. But if you have a look, mainly it's social sites, right? You have a look there. Mainly the top sites are social sites on the internet, right? So that is, again, telling us that social media is a great breeding ground for attention. In a single minute, there are 350,000 tweets, 66,000 Instagram posts, a lot of it, being food, but 66,000 Instagram posts, 400 hours of new YouTube videos is uploaded in an internet minute, and then 510,000 Facebook comments. So if you have a look at this activity, it's ever growing, but it's a gold mine of data for you guys as recruiters to use to find relevant candidates in their roles. Now, you could say, well, my team aren't, my candidates aren't on social media. I've heard that many times for the past 5 years when I've been doing this type of training. And actually I can disprove it, immediately. No matter where you are online, there will be a community, no matter sorry, let me start again, because I'm getting ahead of myself. Sometimes I speak faster than see, I'm doing it again. Sometimes I speak faster than I think. So across the globe, there are loads of different niche communities, okay? And these are free communities you can access, you can find them. So I guarantee you that every candidate that you need to find, this is the candidates you need to find. Now, granted, apart from I'm not actually going to say that, because I think everyone is online and you can find them online. So social media adoption, as I said, 3.8 billion social media users across the world. People spend average 4 hours a day on their phone. 50% of their time is 2 hours, right? So what does that mean for you guys? It means, you know, it gives you an endless opportunity to inspire job applications, right? That's the real key thing there. Your role, if you're using social media for recruitment marketing or recruiter marketing for building your own personal recruiter brand, your role is to create opportunity, inspire job applications. And that may not be through just a post of, oh, look, we're hiring here. It could be anything, but it's attention. You look at the workforce, how it's shifted as well. We've got 74% of Gen Zs think their work should have a greater purpose, which is really interesting. So people are now less focused on, you know, the what, and they're more focused on the why. So traditional strategies of convincing talent are no longer fit for purpose. So your traditional, you know, this role's paying X amount, or, you know, you get a gold watch and you get beanbags and free food. That's not the type of thing that people love anymore. And particularly in this COVID state, or the post-COVID world we're going into, you know, people are going to be working from home anyway. So the cultural stuff is going to shift. People are going to be focused on more sort of why they're doing something and how the impact they're making on, you know, on the world or their society around them. And again, if you take a look at the huge skills gaps that are happening, you know, if 77% of CEOs see availability of key skills as their chief issue. And then also, if the current trend continues, then, and this again, by the way, this will be, you know, this is another piece that's shifted slightly because of COVID, but not too much. But the skills shortage out there for more the high demand skills still exists, right? So social media is a competitive edge. If you've got a really solid recruiter brand, you're using it in the right way, and you are creating a brand for yourself. Okay, so there's dual benefits for recruiters, right? One of these benefits, this is quite a simple slide, is inbound. So if you're creating content, and it doesn't, again, content is content. It just could be anything. People think about it too much. If you're creating content online that inspires people to talk to you, then you can see you can immediately see you know, an influx of candidates. Even, you know, if you're an agency recruiter, even your clients and whatnot who want to work with you. The majority of my work is done via just creating content, and I get a lot of inbound through that. But the thing is, it's not about immediate, okay, I didn't get anything from this, so I'm going to stop doing that. And that's what tends to happen, is people will jump online, there'll be a frenzy of activity for like 3 days. They maybe got 4 likes on a post here, 6 on there, but and then they give up because they're like, oh, I didn't get, you know, anything from it. Of course, you know, it takes time to build, but the key thing is that it's about being in the feeds of people all the time, so that when they are looking to participate in your service, when they are looking to, you know, move jobs, when they are looking to hire a certain skill, and they will use your service, or they will come to you as a recruiter. That's the whole purpose of content. That's really how binary we have to have a look at it, right? It's not about anything but attention. Then you've got stuff which is outbound. So you can use the public data out there to find engaged and relevant candidates. So there's a massive pool of data available to everyone on this call right now. You just need to go and do a search on Twitter, you know, for a hashtag. You just need to go and do LinkedIn search. We know how to search LinkedIn. But the whole point I'm trying to make is that it's meant to be used for 2 things. So you create content so that you're inspiring people to engage with you. It's not about, again, not talking motivational stuff here. I'm just saying, you know, relevant content, and that keeps you on the minds of people every day. And then when you do the outbound, it also feels natural to them that they know you, because they're used to seeing you every day, right? So if I'm used to seeing someone every day, I feel like I have subconsciously have a relationship with them, and the outreach is less cold, so to speak. Great. So how does social media work? Right, let's start with the profiles. Everybody, I'm assuming on here, has a social media profile. Everyone, you know, has information on them, which is their personal data. And what this means for you guys is basically a window into, you know, someone's demographic. It's a window into their abilities. And it's a great place to be able to just do the initial outreach of someone and understanding who they are, right? So everyone has a profile. It's all about understanding their authenticity or authorship from your side as well as a recruiter. So on your profiles, what are you telling the world about yourself at the moment? You know, on your LinkedIn, if I was to go to it, how advanced is and how personal is that profile, and how are you enabling people to understand what you do immediately, and inspire them to speak with you? A lot of people take their profiles not as seriously as they should, really, because you think about what's the first thing we do when we get a call, or what's the first thing we do when we want to find out some information about someone? We go to their profile. So how effective and how much that profile represents you is super important. Okay, so all about using this to build your personal brand, using this to give information to the world. It's using this to give information to your prospective candidates, or even if you're an agency recruiter, your clients. Okay, so giving them a real good understanding of your authority. Search is based in everywhere. So of course, you know, search, every platform can be searched, and that's the beautiful thing about social media, is that you're able to find anything and anyone in a certain demographic, right? We've got the keywords, we've got key terms, you can use filters, you can use Boolean strings, whatever it may be, but using information, using your ability to search effectively can yield some significant results when it comes down to finding the right people. But how effective we go in those searches is all based on the data that we are trying to find. Everyone has activity trails. You think about what your activity trails are at the moment, and again, particularly today, this has never been a better time in the history of online, where everyone is focused more on their screens every day than out and about in the world, because we can't go out and about in the world. So being able to go and find content or find relevant candidates in these spaces via content is really a great opportunity at the moment. There's stuff like commits on Reddit, on Stack Overflow, on GitHub rather. You can actually understand immediately how well a candidate is, or how good quality a candidate is via their the stuff that they're just putting out online. There's questions on Quora. So there's lots of if you're an agency recruiter, there's lots of companies, employers out there asking, particularly in the startup space, how do I scale my teams from 10 to 100 over the net? And these are CEOs who actually genuinely have these questions, and people answer them. So it's a great place to find people who are looking for jobs. So it's really difficult to find candidates, and it's also a great place to find business and win new business as well. Using these types of this type of content and activity enables you to go in armed with more information on the prospect as a candidate or customer. There's reviews, there's likes, there's shares, there's lists, there's endless amount of activity online which you guys can use to build your brand around, whether it's even commenting on those things, whether it's having conversations with customers on it and all that sort of stuff. There's thought leaders online. Again, so why would I be mentioning thought leaders in this space? Because I guess the best way to put thought leaders is influencers, right? These guys are the trendsetters. These are the ones. So associating yourself with those types of people, or not even that. If I'm going to say, if I'm hiring specific Java developers in San Francisco, I'd be looking at going to the what they call them in San Francisco. It's a really lame name. Tribe leaders, they call them tribe leaders. These really amazing people who are like really technically able, and they have like people follow them all the time, in those demographics. So if I'm a Java developer, and I'm renowned, I've got lots of Java developers who follow me, right? And so it's using these types of techniques to understand, well, where is everyone? What are they doing? And also, what are they doing so I can emulate it? So thought leaders are accounts with high followers and content engagement as well. The thing is, it doesn't matter if they've got like 100,000 people or 30,000 people. It's about the niche. So understanding the niche you're trying to target and where you're trying to become, a thought leader in recruitment within those spaces, understanding that is super important too. Influencers, trendsetters, people, these guys that thought leaders as well, they can give you content inspiration. So again, people think that they need to be creating all the time. Of course, I think creation is good, but sometimes you could just actually just look at what someone else is doing and copy it. There's I think, who was it that said, great artists create, the best artists steal, or something like that. I don't know if that's word for word, but the sentiment is there. If you want to, why reinvent the wheel? Why go and spend hours trying to think of a blog to write when you can go and read a blog and rewrite it in your context? Do you know what I mean? These types of things that people think too much about. And looking at sort of the unofficial communities as well out there. So I'm just going to have a drink of my water, 1 second. Neil, have we had any questions yet? I can't see.
No, nothing through yet.
All right, cool, guys. Feel free to ask questions if you have any for now, while I'm just having a sip of my water. Okay, cool. So again, these are junctions as well for specific groups of talent. I really like that sentence, junctions for specific groups of talent. So they're an ability for you to be able to go and find talent in a certain area via these thought leaders, and also becoming a person renowned for that type of recruitment in that space. Again, remember, look, guys, this is all about thinking long-term perspective, yeah, not just what am I going to get this week on social media. So there's groups, there's channels. I do believe that we're moving into an era of more groups than just widespread, say, looking at your content feed. So for instance, if I go on to, on my Facebook, for instance, yeah, I've got my news feed, but that's like, 2,000 people I've met over the years, and, had conversations with once or twice. So I'm not really interested in all their content, but what I am part of is specific groups. So I really love Bruce Springsteen, and there's an Everything Bruce Springsteen groups, 15,000 people on it. And it's really great content all the time. I actually love it because I love Bruce Springsteen. If you love golf, there'll be a golf group. I even love the channels, the little community channels of like the neighborhood watchers. I love going on those and watching people. Oh, did you see that white van drive around twice? There's a white van. I love that type of thing. I love just even getting on there and even trolling these people as well, because it's not trolling in a bad way, but just having a bit of a laugh with them. So you think about the way everything's moving. We've gone less of the use.
We've got a question, Antonio. It's from Marty Ferren. Antonio, who are the people you follow and look up to? Any thought leaders we should look into?
So absolutely, it depends on what your game is, I suppose, and what you're trying to hire for or whatnot. But there are the standard ones that probably everyone knows. I listen to a lot of motivation and self-help stuff every day. So I wouldn't say they're thought leaders, but they are really great at what they do. So you've got like people like Abraham Hicks. It depends if you're into that type of thing. You've got, obviously the classic one is, Gary Vaynerchuk is really a good person for even this type of information, looking at social or building a brand rather than looking in depth into the social channels, but really building a brand. And I'll have a think of a few and I'll send them over to you afterwards. If you can note the person, Neil, that'd be great. Yeah. All right. So what I was saying, as I said, we're moving from this world now of, going into the pub. We have moved from the pub to an online pub, right? We're moving from a world. So I think that the way things are going to advance more so is that you're going to have hyper-specific groups around certain topics. And those groups are great for us as recruiters. And, even if you're looking for business development or whatever your role is, those groups are fantastic because you've got a demographic. You know what they're into straight away. You know how to target them. And you know how to, who's in the group as well. So these are really neat things in the space of understanding how to get your service across. So it's all about networking as well with like-minded people. It's got to be like sort of, you can't be fake, right? So you have to really have be part of the communities and not just sucking off them. So you do need to be part of them as well. It's part of giving. It's about fun, efficiency, for content filtering, as I said. And then it gives you a social status as well. So you become someone who's known. Typically the view of us recruiters, is changing now. It has changed over the past couple of years, I believe. but you know, there's still a lot of people who think recruiters are cowboys and whatnot. So having the ability to engage in these groups really gives you a powerful stance. And then, you know, events now, obviously things have moved into, you know, the more so online events, but this is great because everyone's looking at events now. So obviously 90% of events out there are public anyway. You know, they're often skill set specific, so they're often hyper specific around a demographic. So you can go to these, the guest lists are usually public. You know, like I said, if we were on this call right now, it wasn't a public guest list, but you know, anyone on this list can see who's on this call, right? So you can go and scroll through, and if I was a rec to rec, this would be a gold mine for me finding and engaging with people, right? So they can be great for sourcing and whatnot. Engagement, everybody wants attention, even the ones who say they don't, and they still want the attention, and they're saying they don't because they want it. So even sort of all about engagement, right? So when so the beautiful thing about LinkedIn at the moment actually is, funnily enough, and this is all content, this is a Facebook post, but the beautiful thing about LinkedIn now is that it's the best place to get viral organic growth. So if I post a post now and then let's say Neil likes it, I get access to his network. So the whole of Neil's network sees that he's liked the post. So not only do I my network see it, then Neil's got it. Then if someone comments on it, then their network sees it. And the more people comment, the more it starts to be shown and goes higher up the algorithm. So what this means is that people often don't want to get into you know, difficult conversations on LinkedIn, but actually it's really good for marketing. It's really good for you to be able to build those conversations, to create engagement. So all those types of things, and it feels natural to people. It doesn't feel like they're being sold to because it's their mate commenting on a post, or their mate like to post. Do you know what I mean? So it feels natural. So being able to create content around that inspires engagement is super important. Looking at followers as well, you've got access, so I can go to anyone's profile and see who's following them, who their followers are, the types of people they are, the brands that are following them, you know, what groups they're part of, their demographic, the geography, all these types of things, using social to understand following. So these are all the components that are super important. So as I was talking about, you know, the newsfeed before, the newsfeed is the homepage for most social platforms, you know, if they're the majority of them. It's driven by algorithms, and the algorithms are constantly changing. So it's super important that, you know, what worked this week on LinkedIn will not work next week. And actually, you notice I notice a shift all the time when the algorithms change. But the only way you can understand what is working on these algorithms is by posting content, and then look at what your engagement was. Oh, I didn't get much engagement on that. I should change the type of content I'm doing. And then post more content, and constantly learning and assessing. It's not a one time, you know, I do this and that's great, I can do this type of content forever. It shifts all the time. So obviously by understanding that your feed, even the stuff that you see, is based on your preferences, by understanding that, you're able to really start thinking, I guess, cohesively about content. It's obviously competitive in there because there's so much shit going out all the time. So people are just scrolling all day, and you'll only stop on things that are relevant, right? So it's really important to understand that. But it's a fantastic broadcasting opportunity. You just need to follow a certain rule, and that's the 70-30 rule. Now, 70% of the time, you should be engaging with content, and 30% of the time, you should be sharing. So what that means is basically 30% of the time online, you should be sharing content, but 70% of the time you should be engaging with other people's content. And this creates, first of all, the outbound we were talking about, but then it also creates the inbound. And if the more conversations you're having, again, the more ability you have to be seen, be recognized, and of course, then have the opportunity for someone to participate in your service, to be employed by your company, to you know, to use you as an agency if you're an agency, and all that sort of fun stuff. DMing is a super underrated place, I believe now. You know, people are sliding into DMs a lot, but at the same time, direct messaging after people have been engaging in your content, again, it becomes more of a warmer conversation. So it really allows you, so the funnels, you can see where the funnels are starting, right? So from what I'm talking through on here, again, I'll send all the slides over afterwards, but you can see where the funnels start from, and then how we're funneling down into getting you to hiring someone or working with a business or whatever it may be, where the end goal is. So direct messaging allows us to narrow cast opportunities, so we can really broadcast opportunities to the right people after we have all the understanding of them. It's a really dominant form of social media interaction. Most people today will, of course, have a public conversation, but they're having conversations in the DMs more so. And if you notice, guys, I don't know how you guys feel and what social channels you use, but if I'm having conversations in, say, a Twitter DM, even if it's with, say, a director of, it's a managing director of a recruitment firm or something like that. If I'm having conversations in Twitter, it's a very different conversation, and it feels different than LinkedIn or even Instagram, for instance, because people are used to communicating with their mates on those platforms. They're used to being in more of a unprofessional setting, quote unquote unprofessional, that's what I'm saying, because I don't think professional exists anymore in the sense of how it has done before, but it's more of a natural feeling, because you used to chatting to your mates. So people are more loose, they're more loosened up, they're a bit more warmer to you than they are on LinkedIn, because when I message someone on LinkedIn, they're going to be a bit more, I suppose actually in many ways egotistical, because it's a professional community. Do you know what I mean? So that's something just to note there. But yeah, it allows you to share further contacts and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so that is the whole point of social and how it all works, all the sort of components of social media. Any questions on that before I move on to the next planning stage? We got any questions, Neil?
No, I'll let you know if something comes through though.
Perfect. Just a quick question out to you guys. Are you finding this of value so far? The workshop is it thought provoking? That'd be good to know. Cool. Okay, so planning content is probably one of the things that people underestimate the most. And really thinking about what you're doing online can yield more results than just going at it gun-ho, but at the same time, go at it gun-ho as well. I do think that you should just be posting content out there and learning about it. So what planning means is that, you need to create a professional profile, if you will. Obviously, this is a company profile, but creating a professional profile is not just about how I create the profile, but it's also about what I do and how I convey my message online to a certain demographic, whether it's if I'm hiring finance directors, or if I'm trying to target asset management firms to recruit for them, or if I'm, a chocolate salesperson and wanting to help people, want people to buy my product. It's all about the social proof, right? So using a space online for you to be able to demonstrate that you are the best at what you do, or your company is the best at, for Java developers to work for, or whatever it may be. Using that space, integrating all your value propositions, whether it's your employer value propositions, your own personal value propositions, putting them in there, but using media. People like text and long form, of course, and there's a certain type of people that will appreciate that. But if we've got a limited amount of time to generate interest and gain people's attention, I need to be seeing stuff straight away. Think about how your people are working, right? How these people work. We're all so instant right now. We need to be seeing things straight away. So if you can give them access to that information immediately, they're going to know. So obviously, this is from one of our, when we ran our employer branding agency. Straight away it says social, so exactly what the company's going to be about, sort of. And then the most recent post is how to fight the skills gap with hiring messages. So instantly you're like, okay, then this company can help me engage people online in a certain demographic, right? So it's instant information. So really super important that you're doing it, and then crafting your activity trail around that type of the type of content that you want people to know, the type of content that you want people to think you're a specialist in around a demographic. I think it makes sense. I can't think of a better way to say it just yet. So demographics. Now, this seems like really in depth, but I'm telling you, we have used this many times. This is a proven methodology for you to be able to understand instantly. You know, today, if you just spent an hour doing this, understand instantly how you're going to engage a market through content, right? So it's a 5-step or 5 components, 5 pillars, 5 whatever. 5 areas of thinking about a candidate. So what, or say even a client, if you're trying to prospect, what are their interests? What are their behaviors? What objections would they have and do they have? What communities do they work in? What communities do they sit in? And who are the communities around them as well? And what are their aspirations? If you can create these, if you can understand these 5 pillars, you can create unlimited content and constantly cycle it. So if you take a look, this is for a business development executive persona in New York. This was actually something that we used for one of our customers back in a while ago when we ran our employer branding agency. As I said, we don't do that stuff anymore. We're just a tech company now. But when we did, we created personas to create marketing out of them. So we were looking at business development executives. So these guys were like MBAs guys, you know, they were just coming out of you know, masters, and they had to be quite, you know, quite a real solid understanding of technology because it was for a technology firm. And they were hiring 100 of them. So we looked at the interests of the market. So we looked at what they're interested in. So you can see here, there's like what type of consumer culture, mainstream culture, fashion, health, fitness, new tech, Internet of Things, all that sort of stuff. A lot of them were quite sporty and healthy, and you know, of that generation. And you know, they really like young entrepreneurship. Behaviors, we looked at the behaviors, you know, they work hard, play hard mentality. They love motivational speakers, culture vultures, like eating out. They love earning, but they also, you know, like to go and spend their money as well. And you know, they've got sort of revolutionary instinct. I know it sounds all crazy. It sounds really hyper specific, but again, you know, you can start feeling the type of content you're going to build for these types of people. So looking at, they love leaders, you know, like solution oriented, very strong initiative, they're early adopters of things. So this has started to lead us down a certain path. And as you can see, we started going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And then we were able to craft messages out of this content. So, you know, the messages were all based around, which we built, you know, massive campaign. And again, I know this is for high level, this is for marketing, and this is for an advertising campaign. But at the same time, you can make this hyper specific to your recruiter brand and who you're targeting, right? So we built a campaign out of that, gave us really solid understanding of the demographics. So how do you create a content strategy, right? So this is how we did it. And this is how you can do it. Again, it doesn't matter if you're using this for a company to help them hire 50 people, or if you're doing it for yourself, so you can just build your brand. Here is what we mean. So use the persona. So use the persona that we created to define those content pillars, okay? So the content pillars can be video, can be whatever it may be, but you come up with your own content pillars, or, you know, the types of sentiment. Use sort of temporal themes. I mean, I'd love to ask some people, what do you think I mean by temporal themes, guys? It's a very interesting one, right? So things that are going on in the market at the moment. So what I mean by this, if you have a look at what happened, I'm sure a lot of you guys watch Tiger King, right? Tiger King's amazing, love it. You know, I think it's a really great documentary. But notice how everyone was jumping on the Tiger King memes. I saw some real solid ones, actually, some really great ones. I was even going to do, you know, dress up my son Leo as what's his face? What's that geezer's name? Forgot his name now. Anyway, the man, you know, the guy. Well, I've got his name. Anyway, I was going to dress him up as him and redo the video, but anyway, I didn't do it. Another thing, but what I'm saying is, it's a temporal thing, right? Using themes that are happening in the market at that time, and you know, repurposing it into you know, content around your business or your own recruiter brand.
Yeah,
Just
thank you. Thank you, Cam. It was Joe Exotic was the one you're thinking.
Joe Exotic, that's the geezer, absolute legend.
I've also got a question from Rebecca Hastings about this. So are there any tools, she asked, that you'd recommend for getting understanding of your current networks and who's engaging with your brand?
So yeah, there are some tools out there, you know, which give you sort of understanding of who's engaging with your brand. You've got like the likes of, you know, even HubSpot for that matter. You've got the likes of, you know, I've got some tools at the end which I'll show you at the end. Just because I'm just regurgitating a load of information, my brain just goes blank. But yeah, there are loads of tools. The other thing is that no tools can replace, you know, how much you comb through stuff and observe as well. I think people rely on tools too much, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't, because we need tools, absolutely. Tools should make our lives easier, but we should still really be critical about the type of stuff we're putting out online, so that we can understand better and become better, and get more engagement, and, you know, become better creators out there. So I'll share some tools shortly anyway. 1 second, just take note of that question, Neil, please.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Right, guys, I'm going to go through this slide, and then we're going to have to pause here and then come back to next week's, come back in a session next Monday for part 2, because I don't want to rush through this stuff. I'm sure all you will agree that there's a lot of value-added content here, and stuff that can really support you guys. And I don't want to rush it and overview it so that you leave more confused than when you started. So I will send the slides up until this one, and then we'll continue with part 2 next week. I hope that's okay with everyone. I'm sorry I underestimated the time. That's just because I'm giving too much information out. So apologize for that. Okay, so creating a content strategy is all about using the personas, as I said, to create your content pillars. Use the themes, the Joe Exotic themes, you know, absolute geezer. And then mix up the content. So don't just go and do one type of piece of content. You know, again, you could just do it right now. I can literally create a video right now. I'm just going to go here and just create a video. Just give an example of how to create video. It's a great workshop we're doing right now. Like if you agree, blah, blah, blah. That type of thing, you know, just that, as instant as that. Obviously, you know, I asked if there's a call to action there, but it could be anything, any thought, just anything, you know. Oh, what do you guys think about Joe Exotic? You know, Joe Exotic is, how many people would work for Joe Exotic? You know, those types of things. Anything, it's just anything that inspires engagement. Do not overthink it. We all overthink content too much. And what's the worst that can happen? You post a piece of content, but someone doesn't like it. All right, so what? You know, it doesn't matter. If people don't like it, they don't like it. You post a piece of content, people love it. You know, that's it. You're going to have to make sure that you're not thinking too much about other people, and just put content out. Obviously, you know, I wouldn't go out and put content out that really offends people. But if it's taking the piss, take the piss. It doesn't matter. You know, nothing is serious. Everyone gets a bit too serious about their content. And then also piggyback on those trending topics as well. It speaks for itself, you know, piggybacking on what's happening, you know, what hashtags are trending, piggyback on, you know, what's going on in the market. Make bigger stories relevant to your specific talent demographic as well, which is super interesting, right? So if you can go and have a look. So what did I see earlier on? I posted to Neil on that. So there's a piece of content which I noticed earlier on. I was saying, oh, the sun has gone into lockdown, right? And basically it's going to be at this low, I don't know how to, Neil, can you rephrase it for me? I don't know how to rephrase it.
Yeah, it's just in the cooling period right now. So the sun gets hotter and colder over, you know, certain parts of the year. And it's in the cooling period.
Thank you so much. So yeah, it's in a cooling period at the moment. So basically over the next 100 years, we're going to be a bit more cooler. So obviously they've made that content relevant to their demographic, right? So, because many people, some people like Neil was really interested in that stuff, but some people won't really care. But the sun has gone into lockdown, and that really gripped me. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So they made it, because obviously we're all on lockdown. So that type of thing, thinking about content like that, provide relevant, engaging, and exclusive knowledge. You know, you can say as a recruiter, I've just been speaking with a large tech company in Massachusetts, just came to head. They're talking about how they're hiring, then, you know, they're not going to stop hiring. Really great time for them to be able to start refocusing on, you know, things that people would find interesting at the time. You think about how there's a lot of fear out there at the moment, uncertainty. So giving people exclusive knowledge about what's happening. You don't need to name clients. You don't need to name your customers. You just basically just share the knowledge. And then, of course, share internal, external, or meta-analysis data. So any data that you guys have, about the current recruitment market, or developers, how long an average tech test takes for a developer, those types of things. Giving people data, and even curating content. So you don't need to create. You can create, absolutely. I think always create, but you can just go and get content and just share it with the market. These are the type of things to creating a content strategy. Okay, guys, I'm really sorry I underestimated the time again. But what I would ask as a favor, if you guys can, and this will help me understand who's coming back to next week's session, what would be good is if you could write a post on LinkedIn now about how you found today's webinar and tag me, Antonio Junio. And then I will also then send over the slides after this call that we got up to, and then I'll send you a link to register for next week's part 2. Type in the comments who's joining to part 2. I'd like to actually understand now. It'd be good to know who's joining part 2. Boom. Great stuff. Okay, awesome. Love it. And then the playlist for next week's start will be different as well. I'm going to try and spice it up a little bit. But really great to have everyone on the call today. As I said, the favor I have, please go and tag me in a post and say how you found the webinar. Obviously, I'm just trying to provide as much value as possible. I want to make these a weekly thing, so they're free of charge, no money, just basically giving people great information to operate in the online world. Really excited to have everyone next week on the call. And as I said, I'll send over all the information after this. But other than that, have a great week, guys. Look forward to seeing you all next Monday, yeah? Thank you so much.
Cheers, everyone.
How we doing, mate?
Yeah, good. You?
That was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's good. I like those lecture types.